Well, hey there, it's Toph here, and welcome to part 2 of the Prayer Chain's Mercury episode. Hope you liked and maybe even learned a thing or two there from part 1 and that walk through many of those old Christian rock favorites. Faith Plus One, the Shooks, and the Favazza Brothers even got a shout out, so you know you're into something good when that happens. But here we pivot back into the actual album. We'll go track by track through Mercury, give our final thoughts, and of course, Dolores is in your head. So now we will begin part 2 of episode 98, The Prayer Chain's Mercury. Hope you enjoy it! Anything else in the Wonder Stories that you wanted to make sure we touch on before we pivot back to the record?
It's gonna be cool because we'll get to it in the track by track. I think that the biggest thing is that I do want to mention for Wonder Stories is how much this album impacted me as a musician too. We don't talk that much on the podcast about us as musicians and what we do, but we touched on it earlier. But this album was really important in terms of the band kind of bringing this atmospheric space rock thing to the surface, but also doing it in the context of songs. I would just say that this is one of those albums that, above everything else we've talked about, Mercury played a key role in certainly my development as a musician.
Well, particularly with the percussive elements of this, right? I mean, I assume
exactly,
Wayne, a drumming influence, and certainly the very diverse approach to percussion and drums on this record, I assume was a big part of that specific influence on where you kind of took your drumming from there.
It was, yeah. And how to incorporate powerful drumming with more atmospheric sounds with guitars that drone. And it was just a totally different take. And that's why it'll be so fun to drop that needle when we do.
Well, it's a great way to round out the Wonder Stories. What do you say we drop that needle? Let's do it, baby. Praise Jesus. Let's do it.
Yeah. Praise him. Let's go.
All right. All right, so we've kind of well noted at this point the importance of the, sort of tribal backbeat percussive elements of this. And obviously it seems they wanted to set that tone right away with track 1. This is more of an intro than anything else, and it kind of works its way as a bookend, by the time we get to the last track, but we'll get there when we get there. But you get these tribal elements right away. Campuzano said, we wanted not only a song, we wanted a heartbeat, a truth of what Mercury was about. And it was this song, which is track 1, and that is Hum. Okay, so obviously right away, you probably knew that you were getting something completely different here. Campuzano also said about this that Andy Prickett had this, he called it a nice drone that you can get lost in and meditate to. And then the loud bass comes and the drums come, and he said that destroyed any semblance of relaxation or peace. So a little bit of that duality, which is such a common theme lyrically and thematically of this album, really starts off musically with Hum. So it's kind of a frame up in really every way. I mean, that there is Tim does some kind of hymn type vocals over it. It's not a chant, but it's sort of a droned out like hymn sort of vocal. But ultimately, Nub, this seems to set the tone more so than anything else. And then, of course, it comes back at the end on the bookend.
I agree with you on setting the tone, frame setting. I don't think it's an intro. I think it's a legit piece of music that actually is pretty wonderful and intriguing. The reason why I would counter the idea of it as an intro is because it does have song structure. I mean, it starts with a drone. It's sort of a beautiful, haunting thing that Prickett is doing. Yeah. You got to remember, dude, this is long before heavy digital use. I mean, he's creating that.
Yeah.
Right. Nowadays, you could tell AI to make that noise and it would. He actually is doing that through experimentation, layering. Tim's vocal does come in and it's inaudible, right? You don't really know what he's saying. It turns out it is some sort of hymn or psalm or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it builds. So it builds tension. And then when the drum, kind of rhythm pattern comes in, that releases some tension, then it goes back to it. So yeah, I don't see it as an intro, but certainly it's meant to tell listeners this is something completely different. But what's interesting? Shaw sort of did that as well with the opening track, with again that tribal bounce and yeah. Like if you didn't listen to that in 1993 or whenever Shaw came out, I think it was 93, and realize that okay, this is something different as well, even though it's a much more conventional sound and record.
Right.
So I think it is inviting the audience. To me, hum is it's like a dividing point more than it is an intro. It's like, if you want this journey, come on in and accept this. And if you don't, then go listen to DC Talk, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's a very intriguing song.
I like the way you framed that up, better than the way I did. You see, you get the bucket there. That was a 3. That was a 3 from the corner. I agree with. This is the cost of entry, right? This is where you decide, are you in or are you out on this? And yeah, I think that's smart. You used a good word, tension, and we talked about it a lot during the band dynamics and during the nerdy deets, but clearly dynamics within the band, personalities within the band, religious viewpoints, all these things were obviously a point of tension within the band. And the fact that you point that out here this early in the record, that you're getting that in a very musical sense, I think is dead on. Well, then we get into something that's probably the most conventional, I guess, on the record.
Maybe. Yeah.
Right. And that is track 2. And that is Water Dogs. Now you get a real sense here. I mean, the first thing that jumps out at you is Wayne's drumming. And I can tell you, I mean, as a big Jane's Addiction fan at this time, I mean, I was already a couple years deep into my Jane's Addiction obsession. I had never heard a drummer play like this other than Steve Perkins in terms of that offhand, tribal, kind of offbeat thing. It's a hell of a drum beat. I don't know.
Such a good comparison, by the way. Him and Perkins, such a good comparison. They're very similar.
For a non-drummer, yeah, thank you. But and Hindalog may have been in there too. I mean, Hindalog at his core, obviously a drummer. So this could have been Wayne. I think there's so many moments here where Wayne and Steve Hindalog were probably putting their heads together. And I feel like this may have been one of them, but you hadn't heard that kind of skill or that kind of creativity. Then, of course, Wayne comes over the top with the falsetto backing vocals. It's kind of a Tim song. I mean, the vocals really do control it in a way that they don't control the other songs on this record. So I give Tim a lot of credit on it. But it's kind of a Wayne song with the drum beats, the offhand stuff, the groove of it. They said Water Dogs was an example of the, quote, only type of rock they could tolerate anymore. Campuzano, you'll like this. He also said, most people thought this was a crappy U2 ripoff, but they're wrong. It was actually a Curve ripoff. So that's and these guys were never afraid. I mean, we'll get to it with other tracks to make clear that these were heavily influenced. But Water Dogs, certainly one of the more traditional tracks. How do you think it plays over time, Nubs, looking back at it? Because the other tracks are probably more critically acclaimed than this one, but obviously it's still a very important part of getting Mercury off to the right start.
Yeah, this is the moment where we probably have to reference 2 things that are really important to this story that we haven't really touched on yet. One is the Antarctica live album, And the other, and let's start here, is a name that most people don't associate with the album because he's not part of the core four, but that's percussionist Jeremy Wood, who joined the band in the studio and toured with them on Mercury. If you remember, they had a fifth member on stage, the percussion player. We called him the percussion player, Jeremy Wood. He's actually with them at the Nashville discussion that we've referenced a few times. We always had this assumption that like Wayne's doing all this. He's actually not. Wood plays on the album, and live, the only way to pull all this off and all of the additional rhythms that they added to most of the material on Mercury was done because of and super enhanced by Jeremy Wood's addition on stage. This song, Water Dogs, if you listen to Antarctica, is the one that sounds the most like the record, far and away. They speed it up a little bit, but rhythmically, they do a little bit more activity in the middle section. The outro is drawn out a little bit more.
You're talking about the live version.
The live version, exactly. Yeah. The live version of Water Dogs, that's the one that retains the most feel of, it's a little spacier, it's a little denser, a little less hoppy, right? But this is the most commercial song on the album that's heavy. This is the one that sounds the most like Shawl.
1995.
Yeah, exactly. And sticking it up front did allow for a listener to maybe stay on board. In the end, it's a rather verse chorus song with a Tim song is probably the right way to say it. You know, when this is your most commercial part of the album, then you know that you're still diving into this newness.
So for most that absorb and study this album, track 3 is probably the point, not where most would say that this album gets good, because I think there's plenty good about Hum and Water Dogs, but most would probably say that this is the point where the album gets extremely interesting. Grillade means, I had to look it up. It means a grilled or boiled meat. It's a French Creole cuisine. I knew it had something to do with Creole.
Ironically, because
culture or food, right?
What comes next? Yeah.
But it's also a term for a family of cricket-like insects, Grillade. And I think that's what Campuzano was going for, because the key line, one of the really cool, I mean, there's so many cool lines in this album lyrically, but I feel like the Grillade, 2 inches tall or nothing at all, I think is like one of the really cool lines of this song, and goes along with the whole vibe of it. And you could probably argue this is the point where the album shifts from something that's cool to something that's, wow, this is super interesting, and this is about to become a crazy ride. And that is track 3 here with Grillade. So you can kind of feel that build up, right? And it starts off nice and choppy. I mean, it's a mid-tempo beat that is fairly driving for being as understated as it is. But there you hear that little vocal handoff from, between Tim and Wayne, which is always awesome. And then it sort of gets into this extra build that does get a little bit more tribal. And obviously vocally, it's more of a treatment than it is him singing sort of standardized lines. But then things kind of open up. I mean, it's a very difficult song to pick the right spot. In fact, Nubs and I had to do that sort of in real time. You won't hear it in the edit, but I played one section. I was like, oh, is that the best one? Then we tried another, then we tried another. So, which is unusual for a track when you're trying to find the right clip. And I'm not even sure we did, but we did the best we could there. Campuzano points to this song as a big one thematically. I cited the one line before we started playing the track, but he says that the song is about revenge and about feeling like a loser after the band had faced kind of pressure and criticism from their record label. It seems like they felt, that they were being asked to be more mainstream, which just furthered the idea of this rebellion. And the analogy of this bullied cricket, feeling small and feeling kind of insignificant and feeling like you're getting kind of pushed around was all part of it. Wayne plays such an important part of this, obviously. He plays a violin solo on the track. He didn't know how to play the violin.
And you could tell.
Yeah, and you can tell. And you can, I guess, if you kind of isolate and find a good enough copy of this, perhaps one of the remastered versions, you can hear Wayne actually laughing after he plays his violin solo, so there's a lot going on in this track, which I think is symbolic because you sort of pass through this gate of hum. You get through Water Dogs, which probably didn't surprise you too much. I mean, you knew you were dealing with a different prayer chain, but you it was still kind of like, okay, this could have been on Shawl, I suppose. This, you realize now that you're in it.
Yeah, you do. So this is one where I definitely prefer the live version. The live version is much heavier. Let's be honest, dude. The riff itself is like a straight, I don't like to use the word rip off because we're all influenced by things, but like it's straight Verve. Like it's the Sun, the Sea off Storm in Heaven. Like it's almost identical and it's sort of do. Oh,
these guys like the Verve? Is that what you're trying to say?
And so I think what's really beautiful about the song is that middle, which the clip that we finally settled on was sort of approaching. What Grilliad represents to me is, I think there's a cliche amongst listeners of Mercury and people that take the album seriously that like Tim is the least important part of it. Maybe he is. I'm sure you can make the argument. But Tim Tabor's vocals is what makes this music really interesting because, you can listen a lot to space rock out there with vocalists who just breathy and like you can hardly understand what they're saying. And that's great. But I think what gave the prayer chain a unique spot in space rock is Tim. And that sort of strong as oak, more soulful vocal. And I mean, he really delivers it on this song. The clip we did play, I think, is one of his best moments because he really is the one that builds us into that chorus. And then when you get to the middle section, then he's singing in this sort of angelic way. And live, he sang this song unbelievably well.
Yeah.
Don't discount Tabor musically. We weren't there. I think it's obvious in the Nashville thing that he was along for the ride more than he was leading the charge on this new sound. There's no doubt about it. You nailed that when we first referenced it a little while ago. But he delivers some really, really strong performances on this for sure.
It's a great point. I do think you can sort of discount him musically. I don't think you can discount him at all, to your point, in terms of how he shapes this. I mean, it's a good point because vocally, he was a more traditional, like grunge, if you will, type vocalist. I mean, Shawl is a little bit more traditional. We keep using that word, but it fits. And his voice had that big, broad, strong, you described it well, support of that kind of more abrasive, heavy music. I think it's a big credit to Tim that while he may not have been key to the composition and the development of this, he certainly was able to make a few adjustments, showing that he was at the end of the day on board. But he was able to, without changing who he is and changing his voice, because he didn't go that far, adapt certain rhythmic things or certain volume things or certain like tone related vocal things to adapt to this. And he does it extremely effectively. So I think that's a good point about Tim. He probably, and I've probably done this too, gets sort of written off as like, oh, you're just the front man in the voice. I think some of that's true, but some of it's not. Some of it's not. Campuzano called Grilliad the greatest ever written by the prayer chain. So whatever we say about it, the guy who probably on the flip side had the most to do with the evolution, development, and eventual execution of this one notes it as the best song they ever did. So there you go. Track 4 was originally, they had kind of funny working titles for a lot of these. The working title of this one was a Chevy Chase. So not sure what that means, if anything, probably nothing. But eventually, once they got lyrics around it, Campuzano said that it's a metaphorical song about a slow death apathy and a near-death experience. So
I thought maybe it was because in the middle of the song they go no 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 no.
Yeah. Could you know what?
It would have fit.
Very well could be, but not exactly a shiny happy people type lyric here, but one that continues you down the road of just this very interesting, and in this case, a little bit of kind of a darker path. With track 4, this is Creole. It's a hell of a song. I mean, you keep bringing up the live stuff. This song live is just like kind of mind-blowing.
Huge.
Amazing guitar work by Prickett. This is where Prickett shows he's a pro, because, and to your earlier point, you can do a lot of this stuff nowadays through effects and through, Pro Tools and through God knows whatever else. At this point, this was analog. How do we create unique sound and ambiance through our equipment? And boy, Prickett was good. And there's a reason he got tapped. He continues to get tapped for his, musical expertise and his ability to develop unique sound and contribute to unique sound as a player. So I think he really shines on Creole. The lyrical content's pretty dark, but musically it's a little bit more hopeful than, not poppy or anything, but certainly very musically memorable, I think, here on track 4, coming off of Grillade, which is a little more draggy. This one is definitely a little more perky. I don't love the choruses, but in the final section gets a little messy for me, but the acoustic outro is really cool. And the beginning, like the first minute and a half of the song, I think is just fabulous. So where does this rank for you on the canon here of the Mercury tracks?
Very high. Yeah, Prickett might not tour with One Republic if it weren't for Creole. This is one of those things that I think a band would listen to and be like, we want that guy, even if it's 10 years later. The thing you didn't mention that I think is a really vital part of this, and very 90s, but not dated by any means, which is the distorted bass from Campuzano.
Right.
In the Nashville house thing, Hindalong, he's so funny. Like he's, they're all having a few, and Hindalong starts getting looser as the night goes along. He kind of takes his turn at praising all 4 of the guys. He really does throughout the night, but his affection for Eric is so obvious. He says Eric is my favorite thing about Prayer Chain, which is funny because the other guys are just sitting there like, oh, okay. But he says that. I mean,
Eric is an amazing. I'll make another Jane's Addiction comparison. I think that Eric Campuzano is very Eric Avery-esque.
Yeah.
The way he plays leads, the way he plays grooves, the way, damn well a lot of these songs started with bass grooves. And boy, how many wonderful Jane's Addiction songs can you point to where that was the case,
Well, it's kind of his personality too. He's a little quirky. He's certainly
they're all LA too, right? How does it get more LA than Jane's Addiction and in this case the Prayer Chain?
Yeah.
Right.
So that big distorted bass, I think that one of the more underrated parts about Prayer Chain is just Campuzano's bass playing. And there's a reason that Jason Martin wanted him to be in Starflyer. He wasn't afraid to create these big sounds, and it's a big distorted bass hold that's sort of carrying the song while Prickett does his sort of wizardry and Wayne is holding it down. I actually think the most effective part is the chorus. They sort of play with major key a little bit. It lifts. You use the right word. It's a tad hopeful. I don't know. But then of course it melts into this sort of mess and certainly droney minor key stuff as well. But the major key sort of little movement in the chorus does flirt with a bit of optimism. Again, I think the vocal delivery is really good, certainly with the harmonies. I'd love to know who's really singing all those in the studio. I know Wayne, you can obviously point out Wayne's voice because of Lassie Foundation stuff, but
we know it wasn't Campuzano. He couldn't sing for a lick. So
we did know that.
Yeah,
we definitely
that's well documented, but yeah, there are other voices there. Well, all right. We've done this for, I think this is our 98th episode of this little podcast, this little thing we started like when we were bored during the pandemic, right?
The pandemic, yeah.
And sometimes you do albums and it's certainly about the whole body of work and the whole, does it have good bookends and is the sequencing good and all these things that you sort of assess. But oftentimes there's one song that you sort of like can't wait to talk about. And there's one song that's sort of like, oh, we're probably going to spend a lot of time on this one and all that. And I think this is certainly one of them. When you decide you're going to do, when you're going to do a deep dive into the album Mercury, this is going to be a standout. And for a number of reasons, I don't think it's just a standout track within this record. I don't think it's just a standout track within this band, but I think in a lot of ways it's a standout track of a whole entire scene and genre and segment of music. And segment of music fans. And most would probably agree with that. Here it comes. Basically, if you took Randy Newman's I Love LA, took some of the comedy out and instead put some like spiritual wrapping paper around it, I think you would have the Prayer Chains interpretation of I Love LA with the beautiful epic that is Sky High.
Maestro, you picked that part on purpose.
Well, I'm about to turn it down and then turn it back up here.
Yeah,
in fact,
good
I'm
call.
just going to do that right here. So, let's zoom out for a second. There are certain songs, and I don't want to like overdo this, but there are certain songs that become more than just a song. They do become an experience, whether it's you saw it live, whether it's, you know, something that you just want to not go more than a couple days without listening to, whatever it is. These things become almost like watching a film. They become full scale absorption experiences more so than just like a song. And I think that Sky High represents that for many. It's a 9-minute track. It's a complete like spiritual love letter to LA, to nature. The Salton Sea is actually Wayne came up with that concept, even though Eric is the primary lyricist. And it's basically a combination of salt and sand. I mean, they're talking about this sort of like area, Imperial County area on the San Andreas Fault, which also gets mentioned in Randy Newman's I Love LA, which is kind of hilarious. But certainly you can tell that this has fairly deep yet bohemian-like spiritual and Christianity elements to it. But it's more about beauty than it is about, you know, Jesus or those type of like really direct, literal elements of Christianity. Sort of the backstory here is the label asked the band to add a few more like Christian, obvious like Christian songs. And they sort of came across this happy accident, they called it, that was Sky High, that was a response to that. What's ironic is that they were being asked to come up with something that was a little bit more mainstream, traditional Christian rocky. And they ended up coming up with, and I don't think they intended to, the moment that is probably the most memorable of the band's career. Another thing that's funny about it is the band self-produced this. They basically said, let's just kick this out. Let's just do this. Let's get it done. They shared it with Hindalong. And what's really funny is Steve Hindalong's response to first hearing the kind of full demo of this was, I don't get it. He yeah. And you listen to him now talk about Sky High and he realizes how special it is. But it's kind of funny that the first time they shared it with him, he's like, what is this? Like,
yeah, it's the only one on the album produced by the band.
Yeah, exactly. And the third thing I'll note before I turn it over to you, because you could almost do like a wonder story about Sky High. We talked about the working titles. The previous song was Chevy Chase. This working title, as you've already mentioned this group a couple times, was Super the Verve. So they're acknowledging, almost self-deprecating them, to themselves as a band, how much the Verve influenced this, and that's obvious. So now, I'm sure you got a lot on this song, including a Cornerstone experience that's probably worth mentioning. But Sky High, take it away.
So what Sky High has in common with Keep on Loving You, Money for Nothing, More Than a Feeling, like these are all songs that the label asked these bands to do to make their album, which was seen as too artsy or out there or non-traditional or whatever, more commercial. So this is the Christian music example of those songs. What's hilarious about it, to your point, is that it didn't do that at all. Now, I think it's probably the most famous song on the album for good reason, but it's not like it's radio friendly. It's 9 minutes long. And if you try to make I think they made a radio edit of it and it's laughable. I mean, it cuts out like all the high impact parts.
All the good parts. Yeah.
Yeah. But Sky High is a great example of a band just sort of doing it. I'm sure there was some time crunch to this song. If I remember the story from Nashville, there was it was obviously the last thing to do because it was late. It was outside of all the other sessions, but I think they had to get it in order to get the album done. And it sure sounds different than the rest of the songs. I guess this is one where just listen to it and kind of understand why it had such an impact on so many people. But it's probably just the band at its total peak. Every second of this song matters. Every second builds some sort of tension or connects to another part. Certainly the outro is just, the pinnacle of maybe this whole era, I would say. The story about Cornerstone is the prayer chain breaks up, and there was always rumors of the members hanging out around the festival, and some of them were playing. The members were around. Well, Fold Zandura did that nighttime set that you mentioned a little while ago in a tent, and we were there. Well, you weren't there.
I wasn't,
because you were dealing with personal issues.
I was in a tent doing other things, and I'll tell you what, whatever I was doing in there, I wish I would have been at the Fold Zandura set, because I missed this one. You guys came back and were like, dude, and I was like, no.
Yeah. Wayne and Eric jump on stage with Fold Zandura, and Wayne sings lead vocals.
Well, Wayne was drumming with Fold Zandura, right? And came off the kit. And it was just magical. When Wayne singing the song lead was beautiful. I mean, Wayne's got an awesome voice, and he captured probably his own interpretation of the essence of the vocal. And the crowd just couldn't believe what they were seeing, and there was no introduction. There was no fanfare. They just sort of like, I think they might have played one other. Oh, they played Only Shallow by My Buddy Valentine. That's what was really cool. Right. So they jumped on stage, they played Only Shallow, and it was like, well, that was cool. Like, what a neat treat. And then they went right into Sky High. And it was incredible. For a Christian music, fan, for somebody who's even on the edges of this whole kind of genre, what Nubs just described is a definitely like, were you there musical moment. There have been a lot in mainstream music. There have been a lot in live performance. Perhaps the most special, like, I was there, were you there moment in Christian sort of rock or Christian music history could have been what Nubs just described. And I'm glad you were there. We talked in the last episode when we were talking about In Your Eyes, which Nubs is still convinced not a love song, about, I mentioned the beauty and the like sort of ear candy perfection and the gorgeousness of In Your Eyes as a song almost like overstimulates me to where I have a hard time listening to it now. It's not because it's bad. It's not because it's gushy. It's because it's just like, this is almost like too perfectly beautiful for me to like handle, so I have a hard time. This is not that. This is like right at the cusp of like authentically, genuinely, and fairly organically beautiful, that end part. And every time I hear it to this day, after thousands of listens, still get that same sort of goosebumpy reaction.
And it's the background vocals, in my opinion. It's a great example of the voices made this
and
what it
Tim,
was.
when Tim gets the breathe, I mean, that's a big part of it too. To your point about let's make sure Tim gets his due. So, all right, well, shoot. I thought we were going to spend 2 hours on Sky High, but we actually got in and out of that pretty efficiently. But
well, it's more time than Steve Hindalong spent on it.
yeah, exactly. He probably feels a little silly about that one right now, but he came around.
I think in the true artist that he is, he probably says, "Thank God I stayed out of that one because the band was able to control what it became."
Yeah,
I mean, it is the only song that didn't have his heavy influence on it. So it's nice to have that. It doesn't take away anything for the rest of the album, but it's very cool that the band just was able to make something the way they wanted it. The four guys. It's cool.
No doubt. A minute ago, you used the word treat. And it was kind of funny because the working title, so we had Chevy Chase 2 songs ago. We had Super, the Verve last song. The working title of this one was Tasty Treat. And this one kind of probably brings you back down to earth a little bit after Sky High, which you probably kind of need and probably appropriate in terms of sequencing. And that is the title track, which is Mercury.
It takes years to get back all your feelings are streaming down your leg.
Dude, it's such a good clip. Can I tell you this quick story about the lyrics?
Please.
So we were, as we mentioned, I was in a band with some people who are definitely listening to this. And be fair, still a friend and one of the more influential musicians I ever played with. Like,
great guy.
For sure.
Good red-blooded American. Be fair.
And really got it. He got Mercury and the Verve like on a deeper level before he disowned them out of his life. The Verve, still mad at you, be fair, about selling all those CD singles. But, or actually you threw them away, you jerk. I remember we were in the middle of a rehearsal and somehow the lyrics of, because I didn't like Mercury. I'm sure it was me being the punk kid in the band saying, I don't like Mercury, this song. I don't get it, because I really didn't. And he went into this whole explanation of, yeah, with the thoughts streaming down your leg, it's like you're pissing down your leg and you don't even know it. That's how numb and callous it is. And so he went and he explained to me what that lyric meant. All your feelings streaming down your leg means it's your feelings are being pissed away. I was like, oh, be fair. Thanks, man. And so hearing that at 15 has forever influenced my my hearing this song.
I just can't see Be Fair stopping and having a long explanation for anything. Are you sure he did that? I can't see it.
Oh, it was so quintessential.
Just kidding, buddy. Just kidding.
It was so great. But he had a real command on what these lyrics meant. And what's funny about Be Fair, if you ask him right now, remember that time where you explained Mercury, he would probably say something those lyrics suck, I totally disown them,
I mentioned during Creole, I felt like that's a song that sort of starts off good, and it's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but it probably ramps down in terms of, if you had one of those buttons that shows you your sentiment during a, presentation or during a State of the Union or during a whatever, that one for me would probably go downward. Whereas Mercury would go up. I think the song gets better as it goes along. We played kind of the tail end of that middle where things start to build a little bit. I think Mercury, once I actually started to kind of study the album and listen to this song top to bottom, you kind of realize that, by the end of it, you're like, okay, that's pretty good. It's not just a come down off of Sky High. It's actually a title track that, I think really supports the back half of the album nicely.
Well, it's got the catchiest melody maybe on the whole album. Do 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 do.
Sure.
Do that is far and away just the most kind of normal progression. that you hear throughout the album. They built this song around it that's very, they could have done a lot with this song and with that melody. And instead they kind of kept it, controlled, kind of bottled in. And I didn't get it when I was younger. It was one of my least favorite songs on the album, but it to your point about it gets better as the song goes on, it also gets better as years go on. I think I understand its place a lot more and I appreciate it.
Track 7 is unique in that Tim Tabor actually wrote the lyrics. I think it's the only song, maybe one other. We'll have to see as we go on, but I think it might be the only track on the record where Tabor wrote the lyrics. It's all about, as he explained it, wrestling with sexual temptation. So that's kind of a big theme of the song. Obviously that costed me seeing Fold Zandura, in Cornerstone. I did
yeah, you weren't really wrestling with the temptation. You were just wrestling.
I did a poor job wrestling during that. Costed me a classic moment. But another very rhythmic song here keeps you going here through side 2 with track 7, which is Shiver. Not again. That was me when you guys all came back beaming, talking about seeing Folds Indoors do Sky High. That was me. I was like, not again. Missed it. But I think rhythmically this is cool. The cool thing about Shiver is it's one of those, like, you need to listen to it like 20 times before you get the groove and the upbeat and the downbeat. I mean, how these songs get kind of like, they purposefully, I think at times try to confuse you with, what the exact sort of like, what's the 1, what's the 3. This one, it takes you almost like a third into the song before you put it all together once they kick into and those are always cool to me. Like those type of songs are always like, it's like they screw with your head. And they do a good job on that one here rhythmically. I think Shiver's okay. Probably for most, it's a bottom half type of song or middle in terms of how you'd rate it. But we're 2 tracks into side 2 here, coming off the title track, Nubs. Shiver, thoughts?
It had so much potential because Prickett's work, especially in the first minute, is fabulous. It's got a really cool tone, but it's my least favorite for reasons that mostly revolve around the lyrics and just the vocals. It's the only moment on the album that not just flirts with, but actually becomes melodramatic.
Yeah.
And I hate that because this album is supposed to be all about authenticity and like more of an earthiness. And it's very melodramatic. Not again. He's doing that. Yeah. Christian music was at its worst when in songs, especially about this topic, turned into like this desperation vocal style. Happened all the time. And they're tapping. It's the only part of the record that like truly taps into a Christian music cliche, which is that. The other thing too, man, is in the middle section, it's the only just like absurdly direct reference to Christianity. Remember Tim sings Jesus come and purify me or whatever it says.
Yeah.
It's like it ruins all of the imagery and all of like the obscure, the metaphoric aspect of what Eric worked really hard to do. It sort of undoes that in one fell swoop just to bring on this like this really explicit reference to it, which for me, where I was and where I am, is not my favorite thing. It's too explicit. And when you mix that with the not again melodrama, it takes all the potential of the music and just sort of upends it into something that I'm always disappointed when I hear Shiver, because it's like, God, this could have been a really, really cool song, but I just have a hard time getting through it.
Yeah, it kind of takes the art out of it. It takes the metaphoric nature out of it. And I mean, as we talked about with Sky High, there was pressure on these guys. There was pressure on a lot of bands within this scene to make sure that you checked some boxes in terms of like, make sure that this makes the cut and gets you over the goal line in terms of being a bona fide, Christian label type release. And, I bet I bet there were times where the band, well, obviously the band really resented that at times. Tim was probably the one that was able to go for it more than anyone. And obviously, I don't think there's any, to your point, I don't think that there's a big mystery here that the one song that Tim writes all the lyrics for goes in that very literal, very direct, direction, unlike the rest of the record. So I'm with you. I think that's pretty well said in terms of kind of how you view Shiver. It's a little bit of a what could have been, type track on this record. So, we've got the song where, Tim writes the lyrics, which is unique to the album. And the next couple continue down that road of kind of unique elements. Monterey, which is track 8, and it's a short track, 319, which on this record is considered like basically an interlude, co-written by Andrew Prickett. Now, it's the only song that he gets any writing credit on. Prickett was not a composer. He was a player, and he was a sound manipulator, and he was a guy who came in to add parts to probably the backbone of what Campuzano and Wayne had put down. Eric still wrote the lyrics, but this one has Prickett's fingerprints on it more so than any other song really in the Prayer Chain catalog in terms of composition and writing. You can hear like there's a sitar. It's pretty atmospheric. It's a little bit of an intro into the next song. And in addition to Prickett's contribution, the song is also very unique in that it's sung entirely by a guest vocalist. There's a gal named Karen Colbert. She was in the band Breakfast with Amy. She also previously in the record chipped in some vocals on Grilliad, but she sings this song primarily. So it's kind of a unique little interlude with Prickett's contribution with the guest female vocalist. And that is track 8 here, which is Monterey. You know what's funny, Nub, is if you didn't know any better, you'd probably think that I just played like 15 seconds of a like old Typo Negative song, with that slow drum and that sort of dreariness. But I think this serves more of an interlude and more of a sort of lead into the next track as anything else. Do you have anything to add on Monterey?
I like it. I like its place. I think it is a nice bridge. It's interesting to hear a Prickett composition because to your point, that wasn't really that's not what he brought to the table a lot. So I dig it. I think it's a cool little, like you said, man, a great point. 3 minutes is it's like an interlude on this album for sure. But no, I dig Monterey. I think it has a place.
Next track is, again, continuing down the line here of side 2, bringing some uniqueness to the table. This song was written by Steve Hindalog. So again, kind of the 5th member of the band here. And you can tell right away from the percussive nature of this one that Hindalog at the least had a lot to do with it, but turns out he actually wrote it. This is track 9 as we get toward the end here. This is Bendy Line. I think this song's really good. Very atmospheric. I think it's a nice setup to the closing track. I did go to a Prayer Chain show where maybe they did one song before this and I forgot, but at the least this was second. I thought it was an opener, but which was interesting to me because again, pretty unconventional, right? They weren't coming out like wanting to rock. They were coming out saying like, settle in because you're in for something a little bit more atmospheric tonight rather than you're going to be like stage diving. And in 1996, which was probably the year I actually saw them on this loop, that was pretty unique. So again, written by Hindalog, he also contributed to the lyrics. So this is basically the Steve Hindalog song, which is very cool. And
it is. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. And
you remember how fast they would play it live?
They
It's
would
on
play it,
harmonica.
yeah, they would play it very fast. Obviously, Hindalog probably didn't love that. I think he liked the groove nature of it, but it was kind of an accident to have. It was a recording accident to have Monterey sort of feed and lead directly into this, but they kept it and it really works. So
As they should have, yeah.
Totally. You can almost package the two together. But Nubs, thoughts on this second to last track here?
I love Bendy Line, but I didn't in 1995. It was fine. It was like a, remember you listen to an album in the 90s and like there was such a thing as filler. It's like, not that I saw Bendy Line as filler, but it was near the end of the album. You sort of had to like get through everything to get there. Now I love it. I mean, now I really understand how kind of gorgeous it is. Rhythmically, it's right in line. It is very Hindalong, which is cool. It kind of like how Sky High was nice to have like the band's vision come to life. It's nice that Steve got a song to really show us what he does. And it is very choirish, especially later work by the choir. I have so much respect for him and such a huge fan of him in the choir that it's cool. It feels very collaborative that they came up with this one together. And I love the hook. Catchy in its own little unique creative way. So love Bendy Line and definitely live. It was pretty cool to hear them just go into speed racer mode and hit this song pretty hard.
Yeah, Steve Hindalog, certainly the George Martin of Mercury, and pretty cool that he got that kind of a moment. And I think a fairly important moment on the backstretch here of this album. All right, we're at the closer. This is track 10, 8+ minutes to round out Mercury. This is Sunstoned. Sounds kind of familiar.
And lead vocals by who, T?
I don't know who.
Andy Prickett.
Ah, okay. Well, there you go. Another unique element of the back half of Mercury. Every great album has a extra member, I feel like oftentimes the producer. We just talked about Hindalog. I think every great album also has bookends. You guys have heard me talk about it a lot. And the fact that they sort of bring back the reprise in a lot of ways of Hum here on Sunstone, you basically just heard the ending of the album, and the way that musical theme brings you into it, brings you out of it, really shows, musically damn near a concept album. Certainly, I think part of the magic of Mercury is the way the music fits the lyrical and sort of tone of the entire experience. And in my opinion, Sunstone, it might be argued that it's a minute or two longer than it should be. However, I can't think of a better way to wrap it up. Nubs, do you like this one?
I love it because I think credit to the band and Hindalong and whoever sculpted this. I think Prickett had a ton to do with this. So that's probably why he's saying lead on it. First of all, you're absolutely right. Bookends of an album. They're going to say it wasn't a concept album because the Prayer Chain would want nothing to do with anything prog-like, right? but it to me it is. When the bookends of an album speak to each other, it's the coolest thing ever. And every band should do this. It makes for a work of art. But in terms of the song itself, what I really appreciate is it revives and takes advantage of one of the most underrated parts, lines, melodies on the album, which is that bass part in Hum. It's so cool. It's like so Campazano and so cool. And for them to bring that back and sort of sculpt this closing track or idea around it and create a ton of atmosphere, I think is undoubtedly maybe the most Mercury thing about Mercury. And that says a lot. This album had to end with something like Sunstoned. And I'm really, really glad it did.
Well, God, we covered a lot. A lot of recollections, a lot of mostly hilarious memories, a time period musically that was very much a part of our fabric and our foundation. And boy, has it been fun. But for the moment, let's give our final take here. Clearly, I don't think it's going to be a mystery how this lands in terms of its impact on the CCM sort of genre. But where do you think this lands as a whole, even for those that may be unfamiliar with its place within, Christian music and specifically?
Here's all you can say. A few years ago, when the band finally decided to do a Kickstarter campaign to put Mercury on vinyl, I think it took 3 hours for them to hit the funding goal to do it. And they pressed it, and they didn't even come close to pressing enough copies for the demand. I can almost guarantee you the circulation of the used copies of this are very strong, and it has a special place in listeners' hearts and minds. And they probably could do 2 more pressings of it and sell out of those as well. Mercury means a lot to a lot of people. T, what do you think?
I don't really have much to add. I think it's pointed to commonly as the most important album within this particular genre. A very definitive work for those that listen to it. And I think that's the key phrase. For those that listen to this, I can tell you this much. I don't care what your religion is, and I don't care, how you listen to music in those ways. But anyone who actually listens to this top to bottom comes away impressed. I don't think I've ever talked to anyone that said they may not love it and they may not listen to it like every week, but every single person I can safely say that sort of dives into this comes away saying, wow, that's quite a work. That is quite a piece of work for 1995 for a group that in some cases, just like every other Christian label artist, was handcuffed to an extent of some of the boundaries that they could and couldn't pull off, some of the lyrical themes and concepts they could and couldn't pull off. A pretty special work in that regard. And I think the cool thing that we're trying to do here is for those that kind of giggle or say, oh, I don't know if I'd ever actually listen to a, Christian rock, if you will, type album. Give this one a listen, and I can almost guarantee you'll at least come away with a feeling of depth and a feeling that you're kind of impressed with this being a certainly important to us piece of mid-90s work. Good opportunity. Nubs touched on this at the beginning, but there's so many people that, listen to the podcast that, we know are going to hopefully find this interesting and find this a connection point because this record meant something to you, and gives us an opportunity to thank everybody for tuning into this and being willing to hear about some different things. I mean, from everything from Frankie Goes to Hollywood to the Prayer Chain, where else can you get it, buddy? I mean, come on now.
That is quite a range.
Let's go. Pretty wide range. All right. Is it on the turntable? Is it in the collection? Is it collecting dust, or is it in the for sale bin? What's your final cut rating of this one, buddy?
It's on the turntable for sure. The production of it has helped it to last, to still be on the turntable in 2026. The album still sounds great. With all the things we talked about, that's one thing that I don't want to get lost in that classification is through all the creativity and all the things they were doing and the rebelliousness and da-da-da. It just sounds great. So it's on the turntable for me. T, what is your final cut for it?
I mean, I'm tempted to go in the collection because there are moments that are lulls. There's a couple of valleys. It's not a perfect album. It's not perfect. However, with it being where it is within the genre, with the ballsiness of the band to do what they did, I'm going to say on the turntable as well. I think it belongs with that classification. And so while not perfect, there are a lot of elements and approaches and intentions behind this album that actually were perfect. So net, I'm going on the turntable as well. All right, buddy. Hey, I'm not sure what Dolores would have thought of this, but I'm sure she would have been angry about it somehow. They are fighting. Nubs, what's in your head, pal?
So I wanted to choose. I know earlier we did our exercise with the Christian songs.
Yeah, we did.
So I wanted to choose.
We pretty much cleared all of those out, unless you have a couple more. I don't know.
We really didn't. I wanted to choose 3. So those were ones where I think we were trying, as we mentioned, to like gauge each other's view on them. I wanted to choose 3 that I'm confident 2 of them you don't know, and one of them you really, really, really know, but I want others to know. Okay. So these are 3 songs from the Christian scene, 2 of which I would love for you to listen to, and one of which you're going to be like, oh, damn, I can't believe I forgot that one. Or you might be like, oh, yeah, I remember that one. Okay. First one is the aforementioned Choir with, of course, Mr. Hindalong on drums and percussion. And that is the song Circle Slide Sled Dog. There's a live version of it that's very cool as well. But the album Free Flying Soul is a great choir album. Second is from the aforementioned Newsboys, and that is my truly favorite Newsboys song of all time, Stay Strong. This is a magnificently inspiring, great song. It's just fantastic. Stay Strong. And lastly, T, you don't like this.
Yeah.
Is a little song by The Clergy called Won't You Agree?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one?
Don't go away.
Yeah.
The Clergy. Wasn't that was in the gymnasium? Wasn't that at
yeah, they played at Mosh Fest.
Mosh Fest?
Definitely.
Yeah. By the way, you made a pretty good call about Ichthus being in Kentucky. Do you remember exactly where Mosh Fest? I know we drove a great distance. It probably was in Ohio or something. Felt like we drove 8 hours.
It was in Michigan. It was up north.
Okay.
I want to say maybe like Cadillac. Something like that, like that kind of
the Clergy,
kind of like a high school gym. Yeah,
kind of a Dolores-like singer, if I remember correctly.
Absolutely.
And I was, head over heels in love for like a couple hours after her set. After
you certainly were at the merch table where I think you bought everything the Clergy had to offer.
Did I creep out and hug her like I did Gwen Stefani? Or
you very well might have, dude. Do you remember the merch area at Mosh Fest? It was upstairs. They had it was every band had their stuff. And then they had this giant Christian record store with CDs galore. We were in heaven.
Oh yeah. That was awesome. Yeah. We got like pounds of merchandise and CDs. And I think we spent like $30. Like you needed a wheelbarrow to carry out all the crap we got. And I think it was $32. Yeah.
Right. For sure. T, what is in your head?
Well, first nubs, it's Chili Mac by Preston Love. You gonna listen to it? You got to go listen to it.
Of course. How could I not after this? Yeah.
Preston loves Omaha barbecue. By the way, he must be from Omaha to say Omaha bar. You don't really think of Nebraska as a big barbecue, culture, but hey, guess it is what it is. Okay, Chili Mac. The second, Silver Sun Pickups put out a new record. It's called Tenterhooks. It is better than I've been disappointed with the last couple. It's better. It's a little more back to basics. And there's always a song where the bass player, what's her name? Nikki, the bass player. There's always like one song that she kind of owns and sings and all that. And on this record, Tenterhooks, there's a song called Au Revoir Reservoir. That's French, That is kind of the Nikki song on it. And it's very good. So check it out. It's not as good as, those Silver Sun Pickup albums that I love, including the one that made Album of the Year, but it's a step back in the right direction after a couple of A's.
Are you going to the show, T? They're coming to Detroit.
I do want to go see them. I've seen them once and they were opening for Third Eye Blind. I was there to see Silver Sun Pickups. Mrs. Toph was there to see Third Eye Blind. And they were great, but I would like to go see a headline show.
I'll go with you if you want to go.
I assume you'd go with me, right?
Indeed. Yeah. I've never seen them, so I'm totally in.
Nice. And then let's do it. And then I'll round it out. I'm going to go Christian here too. Remember The Call, who was a sneaky, they were like the Switchfoot of the 80s. They were like a sneaky Christian band.
The Call was Christian?
They were, yes. And they had that song, Here's to You, My Little, from Tango and Cash, Let the Day Begin. But The Call did I Still Believe, which actually was a Christian song. It was a big hit. So you can go with the Call version, or I'm going to choose to go with the Tim Capello version, the big, sweaty, beefy guy playing the saxophone in the Lost Boys movie. Does his rendition, his sax rendition of "I Still Believe," originally done by The Call. So Tim Capello.
I swear I had no idea The Call was a Christian band.
Oh yeah.
Did you check that? Are we sure about this?
I don't need to check it. Nubs. I feel it. I
love it. All right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the Christian band. I mean, shoot, what have we talked about the last 2 hours? What is a Christian
What
band?
is exactly?
But I think there were religious overtones to a couple of their songs, and I Still Believe is one of them. But forget The Call. I'm going Tim Capello. He gets up there in the Lost Boys, and he's all sweaty and big, and big thick muscles, and
big musculature,
and he's playing his saxophone. And Corey Haim and the big brother vampire guy, whatever his name is, are looking at each other like, yeah, this is awesome. And he's up there like humping the air and playing his saxophone.
Oh yeah, he's all
drenched in sweat,
all greased up.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, well, we'll leave it there. I do want to give a shout, listener Dan M. Man, he's been listening to our podcast since the beginning. He's a great guy. Son of the Good Doctor. And I remember a long time ago, this is probably years ago, we put out a call for, hey, any episodes you want to see. He mentioned this one. It was a great call. Be Fair, you mentioned. There's a bunch of jamming guys out there that tune in regularly that I think at some point wanted to hear us talk about Mercury. I'm glad we did it. Hope you all enjoyed it. Nubs, parting thoughts?
Yeah, good. Like we said at the top, like we can't name all of you, but we might have during the episode. But anyone who's listening to this that was like with us during that era or connected with us in any way, shape, or form on this scene or these bands, like you were definitely with us while we talked about this for sure, because the album was fun to talk about. Talking about the memories of this scene and our sort of weird place in it was more fun than the album. So it was very cool to do that. And I definitely want to remind people to send us feedback, through all the areas that we post this on, or, everybody knows where to find us as well. This might be one of those shows where on one of our next one, we could talk about some of the responses that we got. So if you got through this and you have thoughts on Mercury or just some of the things we talked about, it might give us a good opportunity to do some listener feedback, because I know there's going to be people who listen to this episode that maybe haven't listened to us before or wanted to check in on our thoughts on this. And for that, we thank you and let us know what you think.
And if you could see us right now, you could also give us your thoughts on our beards. Those are coming in nicely.
Playoff beards.
And what you could also do is you could help Nubs understand that In Your Eyes is a blatant love song. It's silly to say otherwise. I obviously am making no progress in helping him understand this. So maybe you can help me. So
a love song cannot say the line, "I see the doorway to 1,000 churches." It just can't. Sorry.
In her eyes, he sees this.
Great. That doesn't mean romantic love.
When I'm in love with a girl, in her eyes, I could see chicken wing, a plate of chicken wings. It's whatever makes you feel good, whatever makes you feel turned on. Maybe it's 1,000 churches.
It's a deal breaker. It's a deal breaker. Maybe it belongs in the religious section more than the love song section. Think about that one.
We're going to sign off and keep hashing this out. But for you all, that'll be a wrap on episode 98. We're gaining on it here. We're almost there. We're on the doorstep. But thanks for coming along on this unique ride with us here on Two Twins and an album. Y'all take care. All right.
Two twins and an album.
Well, that's about it. That's all we have. I hope it wasn't too disappointing. We will see you on tour. Until then, take it easy.